What's this?
Hi, Spyro. Good shot. Wanna try again?
Hey there, gamers. I'm cuddlykitten.
And I'm GnastyGnamer.
And today, we're here to discuss a classic game series about a small, wisecracking lizard. No, not Gex. That's right, it's Spyro the Dragon.
Specifically, we're talking about the forthcoming Spyro Reignited trilogy, which promises to revamp the series for gamers core and casual.
With the game just a few months away, we thought it was time to run down our list of 5 things we hope to see in the Reignited trilogy.
Nowadays, it seems like game developers just can't leave games alone, with tweaks constantly being made that, frankly, just suck the heart out of some of our favorite gaming properties. Already, the list of grievances us classic fans have with the Reignited trilogy is starting to grow. First, the controversial decision to change the color of the roofs in one of the levels left a lot of fans understandably bitter and annoyed. It got even worse when we discovered that in some of the first game's levels, which usually revolve around saving your dragon companions, some of the dragons are wearing hats. This was a major departure from the original games, and for seemingly no reason other than to infuriate the core consumer base.
And let's not forget, in my opinion, the worst one yet. They made one of the roads in the game too dang yellow.
For the most part though, the Reignited trilogy is looking like a worthy successor to Spyro's Lizard Throne. We still have our concerns though, so here's 5 things we hope the developers keep in the finished product. Make sure to like, favorite, and subscribe to get more red-hot opinions from us and our gaming crew. And of course, remember to help our brand by commenting "Nice video, my friends, you did a very cool job." Without further ado, Number 5. The Charge Attack. Let's be honest, Spyro just isn't Spyro without his trademark Charge Attack. Charging around is one of Spyro's primary moves, and plays a big role in a lot of what he can do in the game. Without the charge, there's enemies Spyro wouldn't even be able to kill. If the Reignited developers remove Spyro's charge move, it would be a huge mistake. Now, in all the clips shown so far of the new game, it does appear that Spyro has kept his charge move, but we haven't seen all of the levels yet, and who knows? With the gaming landscape like it is, they might even lock the charge attack in some levels behind in-game microtransactions. And wouldn't that be the worst? If you're listening, game developers, listen well. If you lock Spyro's moves behind microtransactions, you know I'll be making a video about it. And besides, what would Spyro's horns even be for if he couldn't charge? Don't tell me, they're just for if he's feeling horny.
Number 4. The character designs. In the original Spyro games, one of my favorite characters was the sexy and seductive Bianca. With her feisty attitude and commanding presence, she was an inspirational character for me as a young girl, and a lot of that came from her striking character design. With that low-cut top and those exposed thighs, Bianca was everything a young gamer needed to get his heart racing.
Bianca was my first video game crush as a kid, and playing Spyro free just wouldn't be the same if I wasn't popping a boner at the sight of possibly gaming's hottest bunny. Sorry, Peppy.
Do a barrel roll!
Nowadays, the politically correct social justice crowd seems set on forcing developers to change even the most innocuous aspects of a character's design. But I'm putting my foot down. If that rabbit doesn't have cleavage, I'm not even pre-ordering.
Number 3. The Glide Move. Let's be honest, Spyro just isn't Spyro without his trademark glide move. Gliding around is one of Spyro's primary moves, and plays a big role in a lot of what he can do in the game. Without the glide, there's platforms Spyro wouldn't even be able to make it to. If the Reignited developers remove Spyro's glide move, it would be a huge mistake. Similar to the charge attack, all of the clips of the new game seem to show Spyro using his glide moves, and he still has those classic wings we all know and love. Still, increasingly game developers seem to be more worried about being realistic than making a fun game, which could mean over time the glide would stop working. You see, birds can fly because they have very thin and fragile bones, but as made clear by his charge move, Spyro is a thick and heavy little lizard. At that kind of weight, Spyro's wingspan would need to be at least triple what it is in-game for his glide to function in a realistic setting. If I open the game and Spyro's wings are taking up half the screen, you just know I won't be happy. Think again, game developers.
Number 2. The difficulty. In the original Spyro games, one of my favorite elements of the game's design was the often hard-as-nails difficulty. With its difficult jumps and aggressive enemies, Spyro was a gauntlet I needed to become a real gamer girl. Nowadays, however, it seems like games aren't even allowed to be hard anymore. With the snowflake PC crowd seemingly deciding games like Cuphead are ableist because they're too hard. Well, I say no. If anything, the Reignited trilogy should be even harder than the original games. After all, us gamers have grown up with the series, and since we're the core audience the game is being made for, it's only right that the developers give us the kind of challenge we deserve. Speedways, anyone? And if the Social Justice Squad wants to cry about these changes, I've got one thing to say. Just go play something else, stupid.
Number 2. Spyro. This one should be obvious, but I haven't heard anyone mention it yet. What would a Spyro game be without Spyro? The spunky young dragon is a big part of the game's charm. He's cute, funny, and possibly gaming's hottest reptile. Sorry, Croc. A lot of you might be thinking it's a sure thing the developers will keep Spyro in the game, especially since every piece of promotional material has shown him front and center. But need I remind you all of the tragedy that was Metal Gear Solid 2? Hideo Kojima cucked his fans by making it look like we were playing as hard-nosed spy Solid Snake right up until the game's release. Even asking reviewers to make it seem like that was the case. Imagine our surprise when we turned our PlayStation 2s on and discovered not our grizzled daddy veteran, but an effeminate man-child named Raiden as the main playable character. If the Spyro Reignited developers try to pull something like that, especially if they use it to sneak in some token representation, like playing as a female or African American dragon, I think I speak for fans when I say we won't be happy. Because apparently it needs to be said, keep Spyro Spyro. And speaking of tokens...
Number 2. Spyro needs to be straight. Okay, sure, Spyro might be a little pink dragon, but that doesn't mean you can sneak in some gay representation under our noses. While Spyro never had an explicit love interest like his best friend Hunter, his dynamic with the cutesy fawn Allura just wouldn't be the same if Spyro wasn't a heterosexual. They had a tension that was clearly romantic and, dare I say it, sexual in nature.
I'm a fawn, you dork.
Oh, sorry.
And for a lot of young gamers, that was a revelatory experience. I know I wouldn't be the same if I hadn't been witness to Spyro and Laura's playful, flirty banter.
There are 14 talismans in Avalar, and they are all magical.
Don't think you can just change the sexuality of Bianca or Hunter either. They're a couple after all. It looks like she's gonna grab him by the pussy.
Number 2. The racial caricatures. As all true fans of the original games admit, the Spyro enemy designs were perfect, and removing or changing any of them would destroy a lot of what made those old games great. The lazy little Mexicans in the desert town level? Awesome! The big hulking tribal brown people with arrows through their heads? Fantastic! In fact, though it might not be politically correct, these are among my absolute favorite enemy designs in any video game. I mean, just look at them. Aren't they great? If they change even one polygon about these character designs, I won't be happy. Which brings us to number 1. The graphics!
As we were writing this video, we realized something. In a lot of ways, basically any progressive change the developers might want to make to the game would make us hugely uncomfortable, no matter how seemingly inoffensive. And that's when we realized, what more noticeable change is there to the game than the graphics? It might seem like a radical change when the game is out in just a few months, but we think it's time to let the team know what us gamers really want. Classic Spyro to look like classic Spyro. And in our opinion, there's only one way to most effectively do that. Hashtag tweets and comments. We're asking our fans to comment and tweet the phrase hashtag MakeSpyroClassicAgain to hopefully wake the developers up to what we want for the Reignited trilogy. Let's take things back to the good old days of retro gaming and stop worrying about needing to change or quote-unquote improve things about the game.
The original Spyro games had a charming low-poly aesthetic that helped make the experience what it was. So why fix what isn't broke? After all, updating Spyro to the level of graphical detail we have nowadays without making it look in some ways different is basically impossible. Even on closer inspection, you can clearly tell Spyro's butt is a little too large. And did you notice his skin is a slightly different shade of purple? If this campaign is a success, we could turn Spyro Reignited into the first in a whole new breed of video game remakes that basically just take us back to what we had before with all the nostalgic feels we've been dreaming of all this time. So get out there, gamers, and make your voice heard. This has been cuddlykitten and GnastyGnamer here, over and out.
Yeah. Not Gex.
I'm on my way.